Good morning, everyone, and good evening if you are connecting from the other side of the world, like Brendan here. He's connecting all the way from Barcelona, Spain. So thank you, Brendan, for making the time to be here and present this amazing information to our guests today.
Thanks, Christian.
All right, so Brendan is a leader in the marketing sphere, especially in the digital marketing for wineries. So he's going to talk to us today about blending tradition with tech and how to use AI-driven content for wine marketers. So, Brendan, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Today I wanted to talk about how AI is really shaping the future for marketers and how to leverage it. And really it's a series of tips and a philosophy or an approach to using AI chatbots like ChatGPT as a true assistant and somebody, or I've already personified it, but as a tool that you can bounce ideas off of and iterate quickly and 100x your ability to really do your job and focus in on the higher value propositions that are around for you. So we'll go through an agenda today and then walk through some of the approach I take to leveraging ChatGPT. And I'm going to focus mainly on ChatGPT, but many of the same tools can be applied in other ways. So with that, we'll go through an introduction. We'll talk about why luxury wineries can really leverage these tools effectively, some of the benefits of using ChatGPT and the newest iterations like ChatGPT 4, some of the practical applications and some demonstrations, really an approach to using a question and answer, almost a Socratic method for getting to the results that you really are comfortable with to be able to then review and leverage. Finally, some questions and concerns that the team may have out here or any of the people who are attending live. And then a conclusion and really a call to action for ways to leverage this in your work. So with that, let's move to the next slide. Perfect. So many people are already leveraging AI, and there are many generalists that are talking about these tools for marketers. And I wanted to specifically talk to the wine marketer. There are some approaches that I think are really important to get the most out of these tools. They include getting your brand voice, both identified and then something that you feel confident with the outputs. One of those approaches, is really how do you leverage the tool to create prompts that then give you the tools that you need. And so with that, I've got a screenshot here. And one of the approaches that I take in all the work that I do is that I create separate conversations based on the workflow that I'm looking to optimize. And with that, I create a specific workflow to optimize prompts. And so right here, I've included the prompt that I use to have ChatGPT have the persona of an expert, of a digital marketer. And then I then put a secondary prompt to it of what my goal is for this chat, and really are able to give as much detail as possible. And then ChatGPT creates an optimal prompt for that new conversation. And I've found that the ChatGPT 4 version has really improved and made this a very valuable start to the workflow. And so with that, those prompts could be somewhat looking at creating a social media calendar as an example, and leveraging ChatGPT as a social media expert. You can have it be somebody who optimized for blogs or advertising itself. And with that, the approach that I take is giving the tool some of the most recent blog posts and social content, email marketing, giving it as much information as possible that has been, already leveraged on the website, and then move forward with that, so that ChatGPT can leverage the voice and tools that you have. Next slide. So for luxury wineries, one of the biggest tasks is, how do you connect with consumers? How do you tell your story? And one of the biggest pieces is that for many, many millennia, winemakers themselves have been telling the story of the wine. And marketers for the last 10, 15 years have been working to leverage social media and look at new avenues digitally for leveraging content. And in this specific application, ChatGPT can really give you a brainstorm that takes you out of the 5 or 6 things that you may, off the top of your head, want to include in your content, and generate new ideas. And so with that, one of my approaches is, rather than asking a very simple question to ChatGPT like, oh, what should I give for my next post, I like to have it generate 30 to 50 examples, and then I'll take those into Word, identify the ones that I like the most, and really have those as a conversation to feed back into the tool to be able to leverage it. And with that, this idea of using the right message in the right framework is also an important piece. And so with that, I could take a long form piece and then optimize that for a blog post, optimize it for a social media post, or optimize it for Instagram versus Facebook, and really make sure that the content fits. So a lot of times you see cross posting where the exact same post is posted on Instagram and Facebook, and this lets you take it one level more of customization in that way. Next slide. So one of the biggest benefits of using ChatGPT is really that scalability. For me, sometimes the blank piece of paper is the hardest place to start. And so by creating ideas right off the bat, you can go through an iterative process much more quickly. And that helps facilitate content creation across different platforms. By really having a key core view of your brand and feeding that into the system, and then having the system itself optimize back your brand voice, you're able to coach it and really make sure that it's aligning with the message that you want to get out there. And with that, you can then have a really high level of a unified voice coming across. And when it doesn't give you the right voice back, you coach it back to give examples of how it could be better, and go through that iterative process again, and that really helps. And the last piece, I think, is really around creativity. And when you're looking for ideas, having it generate, again, 20, 30, 40 ideas, so that you can then maybe get some things that were not on your radar, and then start to apply those in the work that you're doing. Next slide. So practical applications. One of the, again, key pieces is normally creating a content calendar and then building out and fleshing out the details of that content calendar is a multi-week process. There's a lot of going back and forth. And then again, trying to create the content that fills that content calendar. And by leveraging ChatGPT and being very structured in that, and I'll give an example here, you can then accelerate that process, and have it take a couple of hours rather than a couple of weeks. And so one of my approaches here is to create structure that then the output that ChatGPT creates makes it a very digestible piece. And so for me, I added structure to it. So saying I'm looking for 20 social media posts, but please identify whether that should be the main feed or an Instagram story. And, again, providing some variety there so that your social posts themselves can have some variety. On top of that, there's also a way of trying to create some visibility into the type of post that is going on. And so in this case, I had it also label the post for whether it's a product post, a behind the scenes, looking at recognition for some of the great press coverage that happened, announcements about upcoming dinners. And this is all, information that's further down in the conversation after you've given it details of what are those upcoming events, so that it can then, remix that content into social posts themselves. And again, provide more content than you actually need in order to then you be the editor and choose what makes the most sense for your brand. Again, it really helps address some of that creative block, and lets you think about things a little bit more broadly, and go through multiple versions and edits over a shorter period of time. And again, as a conversation, I really like to leverage this as if it were a very efficient and assistant to be able to move fast, as opposed to trying to get stuck on an idea. You can really help coach it along as if it were a person. Next. So there are some real good concerns about leveraging these tools and having them be such an important voice. And I think that's where having a real goal of what you want as your output, and to try to hold yourself to the standards of the brand itself, let you review the content, coach the content to where it needs to be, make sure that it has the voice that you'd like, and then continuing to refine it over time. And so with that, I think many times somebody will start with these tools and ask a simple question and get an answer that's either too long or too short, or has factual errors in it. And I wouldn't use these tools to try to go outside of your domain of expertise, but rather to, again, take your domain expertise and just make you 100x more efficient at leveraging things, and to really provide it the feedback that it needs, so that rather than you saying, I need one idea, you really do want it to give and produce 20 to 30 ideas that you can then review, feedback into the system, and make it that much better. And again, with making sure that your brand voice and authenticity comes through, there are ways of putting, a voice into the system itself that it can then try to mimic. There are also places where I'm very specific about the 10 things that I wanted to say, and I provide that outline and all the details associated with it, so that it just is able to then put those in sentence form, and works first with an outline, and then building out the content more in depth. And when it produces artifacts that aren't the direction I want to go, I'll either edit that before posting, or will provide that feedback to it so that it knows to remove that section and then leverage it. But so the workflow itself really is within the tools, and then pulling it into a word processor like Word to continue to refine further. Next. So with that, we're just beginning in this journey, and I think the more that you can start to leverage these tools to understand how they might work for your workflows and business, and where you can then leverage them to become more efficient, is really where there's a lot of value to be had. And it's very low stakes. The $20 a month fee for ChatGPT 4 is an incredible investment to have an assistant really working with you hand in hand, and that you can coach along the way to improve. And the other piece to it is, there's opportunities for additional coaching and making sure that you can customize the workflow for what you are looking to do, and brainstorming ideas on how you can leverage these current AI tools to meet your objectives and needs. And with that, I've put together a consulting practice at digitalmarketingwine.com to specifically help clients navigate these new technologies and leverage them for themselves, but also, if they don't have the time or energy to then leverage it on their behalf. So that kind of wraps things up for the introduction to AI for content marketers in the wine industry.
All right. Thank you so much, Brendan, for providing us that insight on how to get started with using AI, specifically Chat GTP, on our operations as wine marketers. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Brendan will be able to assist you with that, or answer them at a private if it's a complex question, right, that we can't answer here. But definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them below. Put them in the comments in any of the platforms that you are connected. Brendan, I did have one question here that came in offline. In terms of saving the first or the beginning of the instructions that you give to Chat GTP, do you do everything on one same chat, or how do you save those instructions so it follows those instructions in subsequent threads, right, or messages that you interact with?
Yeah, that's great. So what I'll do is I'll start a chat in that prompt optimization chat, and ask the very specific question of what do I need for the next prompt, and then the next prompt goes into directly into a new chat, and I'll choose the ChatGPT 4 framework in order to leverage that. And then if there are other elements like pulling in the previous work of a brand voice and other pieces, I'll give it that information. Many times I have the first 10 or 15 series of chats giving it previous information. So, if I'm looking to create social content for a quarter for a specific brand, what I'll do is I'll go back in time to the last 50 posts across different platforms and feed that in and say, this is what we've been doing, just so you have some kind of feedback, and that really can kind of consolidate into an identity that already exists within your social platforms, and then move those forward going forward as it generates ideas, and then puts those into the brand voice as content that you can then review, edit further, and then bring into your social media platforms themselves and link to the creative assets that you have.
Awesome. That's a great way to do it, for sure. And then I have another question here also. If obviously we know that Chat GTP as it is, sorry, Chat GPT, I keep messing that up. Chat GPT as it is, it's not connected right to the internet. You cannot ask it from the get-go to go to your website and look for things to improve. How do you what workflow do you use or follow to get information from the web that's current and get it into Chat GPT and have it review it or give you ideas to improve it or create posts based on it?
So it's going to continue to evolve, and there are other tools out there that you can leverage to connect directly to your website itself. But a simple creating a separate Word document where you're copying some of that content there and identifying what the content on the page is and pasting that directly into ChatGPT. If it's too long of a form, you can send it as a second paste. But there's a lot of copying and pasting involved in this workflow, but that saves an incredible amount of time otherwise. And so, beyond just existing content that's already on your website or publicly available or in your brand guidelines, that may be a PDF as an example, I think that rather than starting with completely blank ideas, if you have good ideas that you have already or that are part of your toolkit, just put those out there very, very clearly in your chat and say, I want you to talk about these 5 things in this piece or this month, and just put them in bullet form, and it will then ingest that and create content based on exactly what you're saying. It's also a really useful tool for basic copy editing. So if you're kind of in a different workflow and you just want to send an email to somebody, pasting it in there and saying, please copy edit this. You don't need to have it change the brand voice or any of that. Your commas get put in the right place, and sometimes things become more clear, and you read it and say, this is better than you have an editor at your fingertips, and that's another useful tool for a different workflow.
Awesome. Yeah. If anyone that's connected live right now, if you have used ChatGPT in your workflow, please let us know your experience in the comments below, or if you have any questions about getting started. Also, please put those in the chat. We're interested in knowing what's been your experience so far, if it's been good or not, or if you're stuck at some point. That will also be beneficial for the rest that are connected or thinking about using ChatGPT in their workflow. And one last question that I have here that came offline, Brendan, is about the SEO value of ChatGPT generated blog articles. Does it hurt the ranking? Does it help? Where do you see this going?
What I would say is that there are ways that you need to have a SEO strategy overall that you're looking to put forth, and whether that and the content component of it, I think, is an important piece. If you're just asking very basic questions like, why do you want to drink white wine, and post that up there, that's not beneficial, right? It's not going to actually add to your site. But if you are looking to have a differentiated article that's talking more specifically about your brand and its history, and you're looking to add different components of that, and you currently don't have that information, being able to leverage the tool and provide it new information, new talking points, but then having that be additional positive content on your website, that I think is a big win. So asking generic questions to try to rank for common keywords like winery, white wine, those things, no benefit at all. But leverage it to create interesting content that's relevant to you and your brand and your website, 100%. And that's really the approach that I would take. But it really needs to be within the context of a strategy that you have for SEO overall, and then use it not to create volumes of content, but to create the content that really is core to your website that may be a gap currently.
Awesome. That's very key for sure. And then I've in my workflow, I've implemented it in various ways, like you're saying, for brainstorming article ideas, brainstorming emails, and coming up with bullet points for things when I'm blocked. So I've seen the benefit of it. I also use it to create or clean code when I'm not in the mood of coding everything from scratch. I definitely used it, and I leverage it to do it for me. I give it instructions, and I tell what to change, what to look out for. So it's definitely a tool that we should all look into and start to use, because it's definitely one of those tool sets that's going to be in the future, right, in the long run. Just like we use, social media posting platforms, and just as we use maybe Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and 20, 30 years ago we didn't. It's definitely one of those tools that's going to be there now in our toolbox to take advantage of. And one interesting use case that I've seen is that some companies, they take their Google reviews, their positive Google reviews, and they give it to Google Chat GPT to analyze and come up with ideas for their services pages, for their product pages, for example, if it's a winery, for their tours or their events. And it definitely helps to take that positive review from one customer and expand on it, with different subtopics on that review. So amazing stuff that we can all use and take advantage of. Um, so if there's not any other questions, if there's no more questions, that's it for this webinar. Thank you again for connecting. And if you're watching this video after the live, also thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions again, related to AI, specifically for content marketers in the wine industry, you can reach out to Brendan. You have his information there, brendan@digitalmarketingwine.com, or visit his website at digitalmarketingwine.com. Again, thank you for your time today. Thank you, Brendan, for giving us this overview of how to use AI in our content marketing efforts. And we hope to see you soon in the next one.
Thanks, Christian.
Bye, everyone.